Welcome to the Barefoot Bushcraft Radio Show. Today is Saturday, May 25th, 2013, and we are broadcasting live on Freedomizer Radio. In this episode, we'll hear from the Wolfman, who's going to give us a special report directly from the 2013 Headwaters Gathering in Heathcote, Ontario. This is your host, A.D. Venture, and I'm joined by the Wolfman. Hey, Wolf, are you there?
Yes, I am, and this is the special edition of the Barefoot Bushcraft Show. I am broadcasting live from the Heathcote Farms and the Headwaters Gathering. Now, the Headwaters Gathering is one of the most unique and unusual gatherings in its kind anywhere here in Ontario, Canada. In fact, there's very few all across North America gatherings just like this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the gathering. It happens once a year up in a place called Heathcote Farms, which is a retired farm turned into a spiritual retreat. And we have a gathering of like-minded people who are into bushcraft and primitive skills and survival and prepping. Anything you could possibly imagine. We get together, we practice skills, we have workshops. This year we have a sacred fire in honor of one of the members of the organization who just recently passed away. It is a phenomenal organization. This year we have about 200 people who are here. So throughout the hour, there's going to be people coming in and out who are probably going to want to quickly take the mic and say hello, talk a little bit about the show. And then we have our special guest, Bill Clark, who is an expert tracker, going to be coming in around the half-past mark. Now, I'm going to bring on my first guest here, and it's just going to take me a second. I just have to mic him in.
Hi, Wolf. My name's Che Bodie, and I run an organization called the Ontario Preppers Survival Network, ontariopreppers.ca, and I came out just to see what it was all about. I've got a friend of mine that's been doing some of the workshops here, and he said it was a great event. A lot of like-minded people, a lot of individuals that care about the environment. From my understanding, tomorrow morning we're going to be doing some sort of restoration projects and to leave the property in better condition than what it is, and quite the diverse types of workshops all over the place. I mean, you've got meditation, everything from meditation to sunscreen, homemade sunscreen, to what to do with how to make sheaths from scratch. So like you said in the introduction, survival, connected with nature, prepping, everything combined. Very skilled set. Very large set of people that have excellent skill sets.
Wow, so this is your first time at the gathering?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's your impression of the overall gathering so far?
It's great. There's a couple of flowery hippie people, I guess.
I guess one of those was kind of unique.
Yeah, no. I mean, like the people are a little too polite. Hey, how are you? I didn't expect that, and we got the potluck tonight, so I got a big batch of corn, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Sorry, let me just jump in here. I do apologize for the disconnection. A.D. Venture is back on the radio, and I do apologize for that slight delay.
All right, so I am back on the mic here. So that was so many people have so many great, amazing things to say. And tonight, again, we do have a big potluck going on. So if you can imagine the sense of community that you must feel, being here every year, when you have 200 people all eating in the same space, sharing each other's food, it's a very beautiful thing. We all have gotten to know each other. I started coming out 5-6 years ago, something like that, when it was fairly new, and I fell in love with the community. I'm sure, A.D. Venture, you feel the same, where people like ourselves, we go out into the world, and you always feel alone. You're always like, I'm the most skilled guy. When I go do corporate workshops, when I used to have, a regular day job and they would do survival weekends, everybody would look to me to bail them out, But here, I'm just like everybody else. I'm not the highest skilled person, and I love it. It's fantastic because you can always learn and always grow. And actually, that's how A.D. Venture and I met, right? We met a couple of years ago at this event.
That's correct. And for our listeners who are monitoring the Freedomizer radio chat, I've just put the link to the Headwaters Gathering. For those that don't have access to the link, it is www.headwatersgathering.ca.
Yes, and
yes,
unfortunately,
I totally agree with you, Wolf. It's an amazing experience. It's quite unique, And that's true. A lot of people within the outdoor industry believe that perhaps they're one of the few that have these skills, but when they come to the Headwaters gathering, they find just about everyone has equal skills or something that they might not know or something that they can gain from. A lot of different great workshops, presentations, activities. It's a great and very unique experience, something definitely worth checking out.
Oh, for sure. And again, people come from all over the world to come to this gathering. You know, we've had people come from England and from South America, British Columbia, although that may not sound far away. It's a long, long way away. And you know, just to have this kind of jive, and you never know who's going to be here and who you're going to meet. There are all kinds of, you know, outdoor celebrities, but when we're here, we don't consider ourselves celebrities. We're just like everyone else, and that's a real beneficial thing for all of us. You know, and sense of community. You know, I will share a story with you that is slightly embarrassing. When I left my area in Niagara, it was 30 Celsius, so it was beautiful, warm, sunny week. You know, I was getting sunburnt and everything. I loved it. So I was like, oh, this weekend is going to be great. So I pack everything, and you know, my mom says, hey, all right, maybe you should think about packing like a wool blanket and a sweater. Nah, I'm going to be fine. So, of course, I get here, and the snows have just receded, and it's just about 3 degrees Celsius. So that's, I'm not sure what that would be in Fahrenheit, about 30 Fahrenheit. It was freezing, and I didn't bring my winter sleeping bag. I didn't bring a pair of shoes, but that's nothing new. And I froze. So, you know, you ask each other at Morning Circle, how's things going? So I kind of had made mention that I was a little cold, and somebody said, oh, I've got some blankets for you. So I went to go get the blanket. I'm sorry?
Sorry, go ahead, Wolf. Don't want to end your story abruptly.
Yeah, because it does kind of get a little deeper into community. So this person says, hey, I've known him for a couple of years. He's like, yeah, I'll be happy to help you out, give you a blanket. And then he didn't have any, and I was like, oh, well, okay, then I guess that's that. And he's like, don't just walk away. He's like, you're here at a gathering. We're going to find you someone who has a blanket. And my good friend Bill Clark, he's like, oh, all you had to say was you needed blankets. He turns out with 3 beautiful wool blankets. I love that, and it literally brings like chokes me up, thinking that it was not just like, I can't help you, too bad, but it was that, you know, I can't help you, but somebody else in our community will help you. And there are hundreds, or if not thousands, of stories like this going on right now at this gathering. It's phenomenal. Over to you, AD.
Yeah, it is quite amazing to see all the pure humanity that you can find there. A lot of people that are just so selfless and giving. What I wanted to mention, and just wanted to check with you as well to see if you had already shared it with the audience, but why don't you go into detail as to what happens in the morning circle? I think that's a very relevant aspect of the community that you can see there at the Headwaters gathering.
Oh, absolutely. If any of our listeners here have been to a camp, you know, like YMCA camp, in Canada we have something called Tim Hortons camp, you will have had that sort of community living, communal experience where in the morning everybody and everyone, so there's 200 people in a massive big opening circle. We do what's called energizers, so we do a little bit of a song. Now, a song may seem to a lot of adults very silly and kind of dumb, like, oh, you know, I've outgrown this. I'm not 6 or 12. But the reality is when you have 200 people engaged in a song, whether it be a round or like a repeat after me song, that celebrates nature and celebrates community, it is so beautiful and breathtaking. And if you stop singing and you just listen, it's like the earth just resonates to that sound of all these people coming together because we're all of like mind and we all have that same sort of, we want to push together and we want to make the world a better place. And that's what these gatherings are about. It is your typical hippie-type gathering, you know, with the exception that we're practicing primitive skills. So these morning community meetings are just like it would have been if you were living 5,000 years ago. Your community would have gotten together in the morning before you broke to do your job for the day, whether it be, you know, chopping wood or gathering or hunting, and say, okay, here's the news. What happened last night? Did everybody sleep okay? Does anybody need anything? I'm driving into the nearest town. What can I buy you? And then, you know, announcements for the day. Like they say that when you come to Headwaters, you don't arrive here. You are a volunteer and a participant. You don't just come and go from workshop to workshop. I've had some people say, it's $40 for 4 days camping. I've got my own property. I can camp in my backyard. And totally agree with you. I have a campsite in my backyard as well. But you don't meet the contact. You don't meet the people. You don't get that beautiful resonation sense of community that you get when you have 200 people sharing a space, sharing skills. You just can't compare the two, right now the cost for this year is $40, and really, where are you going to camp for 4 days for $40? It's $10 a night. That's incredibly inexpensive. More from you, AD?
Well, I was actually quite curious if you would be willing to let the audience know about all the different activities that went on today. Saturday is usually a very heavy day of activities at the Headwaters gathering, especially since it's the second last day, essentially, and you do get one full night. Great presentations during the night as well. But, yeah, why don't you, since you were there the last couple of days, why don't you give the audience just a rundown as to what they could have experienced today?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I arrived because I'm a volunteer and an instructor here. I arrived on the Thursday. And like I say, I never originally intended to come to this gathering to be all of the volunteer and instructor things, but I'm so passionate about it that it was like it's time to me to give back. So we had our things that we were doing, and then pretty much every day after morning circle, we break for, again, like AD was saying, for workshops. And the workshops are phenomenal. Workshops that you would literally, for the kind of people that come here and the experience levels, for the $40, you get so much. This would cost you thousands of dollars if you if you were to take one of AD Venture and Ice courses, you're paying $100 for an afternoon of archery. Here it's free. So that was one of the activities as I ran archery. I ran a bug out bag and everyday carry workshop, which again is normally $100 for that workshop. It comes included in the cost. You have bow drill workshops where you learn how to make a bow drill. You make hand drills to try to make fires and coals, and so many different workshops. Edible plant workshops running all day long, so you can join in these little hikes. Oh, you can eat this and you can eat that. But actually, I have another special guest coming in, two special guests coming in here. So I'm just going to hand the mic over to them. If you can give me a moment, AD.
Absolutely. Well, while we wait for Wolf and the special guest to appear, I just want to direct you again to the Headwaters Gathering website. That's www.headwatersgathering.ca, all one word. And that'll take you to the main page where you'll actually be able to see all the different information that is displayed for this year, including the schedule of what we were just discussing and what different activities that you can encounter when you do go to the Headwaters Gathering.
Hello there.
It is. Oh, hi. Who is that?
This is Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn. Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Carolyn. I'm a holistic nutritionist. I'm from Toronto, and I'm here at the Headwaters Gathering to participate in all the classes that they're offering, as well as I taught a class on edible weeds and what you could do with those weeds that are in your garden instead of tossing them out into the compost, that they actually have a high nutritive and medicinal properties that we can be actually honoring that plant and using.
That's amazing. Do you have a website by any chance?
Hello?
Oh, yeah, we're still here. It looks like you guys might be having a little bit of connection problems, but that's okay. It's understandable. The region's a little remote, I should let our audience know, so that the cell coverage is a little spotty.
Yes, definitely.
But it's not happening when you're trying to avoid calls and enjoy a weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah. So just having
Go ahead, Carolyn. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying I'm just having a great time, and it's a beautiful day, and it's a great time to be out in the woods and be with like-minded people that are loving nature and have that deep appreciation of connecting with community.
So I'm sure you find quite a lot of people there are quite open to the holistic medicine, as opposed to, I'm sure, a lot of urbanites who might be a little skeptical of the values of holistic medicine.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a familiarity here amongst this community of alternative medicines and therapies. And so there are a few other individuals that are offering workshops on energy work and offering treatments like Reiki and crystal therapy and those sorts of things.
Well, that's great to hear.
So it's been great.
Well, that's great. Now, Carolyn,
Yes.
do you have a website by any chance?
No, I don't have a website. I'm old school. So
that's okay.
some people just usually, I do have an email address, and so I do teach in the city. I offer walks in the Toronto region. I'm teaching people how to identify plants, also how to use those plants in our everyday meals, and also to create our own medicines, and to ensure that we are having gratitude for those plants that are growing around us.
Well, that's great to hear. Now, if you'd like, you can give out your contact information to the audience in case they would like to get in touch with you.
Sure. holisticnutrition@gmail.com.
And we'll be sure to give that email address out at the end of the show to make sure that they can contact you if they have any questions or would like to get some services done with you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being a guest here on the Barefoot Bushcraft Radio Show.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day. I'm going to pass you over to Wolf again.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's going to be glorious.
Oh, yes, I will every moment. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
All right. Yes, like I said, we have kind of random people coming in and out to talk a little bit about what was going on throughout the next, 45 minutes or so of the show. Now, our next guest is one who I've been trying to get on the show for a while. His name is Bill, and he is an expert tracker and just all around just an amazing person and has so much knowledge to share about the outdoors and combines in a very beautiful way spirituality of self with nature and tracking and a little bit of herb stuff and like natural edibles and all sorts of amazing things. So when you're ready, AD, I can put him on. You can ask him a bunch of questions and get some more information.
Yeah, bring him right on in.
Okay, hold on just one second. I'm just going to pass over the mic.
AD, good afternoon.
Greetings, Bill. Great to hear from you. I've been really looking forward to speaking to you. Wolf has said a lot of great things, and I'm quite curious to hear from you. So why don't you take it away and let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, as far as the history goes, I am a geologist in a career of almost 40 years, and so I've been out in the bush a lot in my life. And as it came to pass, I was introduced to the tracking world, by way of Tom Brown Jr. down in New Jersey, about 2001, 2002. And so that really piqued my interest on the specifics about being out of doors, so that there is actually an opportunity to track animals and learn from those tracks what the animals are doing, who they are, where they're going, are they hungry, are they in a hurry, what kind of seasonal patterns they might have, so that from an appreciation of seeing them as individuals and learning their patterns and their skills, we could learn a great deal by doing those individual tracks of deer or various weasels, raccoons, foxes, coyotes, wolves, and then later on get the opportunity to say, well, if you're hungry and you want to hunt for deer, this kind of tracking experience could allow that for the hunting community. And I haven't gotten into the hunting part, but I certainly go out with the hunting people to see how they learn their skills about the tracking, which leads me to a whole bunch of other skills on what kind of edible plants are out there, what they're doing during the season, some of the utilitarian plants so that we can make things from plants as far as cordage, which is just simply, string or ropes, how we can survive out there without having a motor home with us. We simply have a few things in our backpack, but essentially all we really need is a knife and a good set of clothes, and we can light our own fire using friction tools. We can knap our own tools with certain kinds of stones, and we can, if we are in the hunting mood, not just hunt, but use the skins of the animals for clothing, for insulation, and use the tools of the animal as far as the antlers, the bones, some of the organs for holding water, and it just becomes a way of learning how people lived for thousands upon thousands of years, and many of these skills are just being revived now. So that's a snapshot of what's been happening certainly in the last 12 or 14 years as far as the tracking side of skills go.
Well, that's incredible to hear. That's just amazing.
Well, there's more to it in the sense that we're learning that there are all kinds of young people out there, mostly young males, who are pretty much lost in what to do in this society, because many of us remember that we had uncles and fathers, and in some cases grandfathers, who lived through depression and who lived through a war, of various kinds of wars, and the youth today don't have those historical pursuits, those historical requirements of them. And so the men are now trying to sort out, well, what is my purpose in life? I mean, not just to learn to play basketball, not just to find a girlfriend, not just to, get a job, but more than that. And we're seeing that many of them are being characterized through medical diagnosis as being disruptive in class, and so they get a label of attention deficit disorder. They're not focusing, so they get a label of being autistic. And what we're finding is that if there is a label to be had, it's really a nature deficit disorder.
Absolutely.
Is probably what we would ascribe to the biggest problem right now. And so through that course of curiosity and invitation, we're taking those youth out into the forest and out into the fields. And most recently, I was invited to participate in an outdoor school close to Guelph on a rainy day. And I was thinking in my head as I was driving there, what am I going to do with these 4 or 5 boys, age 8 to 12, in the rain? And I was kind of fretting about it, but knowing that I'll just wait and see what happens. And when I got there, I met the boys for the first time. They seemed to be really excited because their instructor had told them that I'm coming and that I like the out of doors. And I said to them in a tentative way, while the rain is coming down, so what would you guys like to do on a rainy day? And they looked at me like I was speaking in another language, and they said, well, we're going to look for salamanders. And I just broke into this belly laugh and said, of course we are. What else would you do on a rainy day? Let's flip over rocks and look for salamanders. And I thought, wow, this is exactly what youth can identify with. And through that process, we identified salamanders. Why are they here? What is happening at this time of the year? What is their pattern for procreation? And it was just an amazing experience to be outside in the rain and having so much fun.
That sounds absolutely great.
Well, another part that I really enjoyed is actually that through that process of wondering about the youth out there is the opportunity to, as an owl, and an owl is a person with life experience, and that would be me. One example of an owl anyway, and we've grouped together as people over the age of 45, and I'm considerably older than that, and that's really one of our prerequisites is to engage the youth. And so that other component is for us to be present for, in my case, young boys, just so that they can show their enthusiasm. I can ask them questions about what their experiences have been like. I can ask them other questions about what they really enjoyed the most, and hopefully through this ongoing interaction and relationship, get them really turned on what it is that they love in life, and know that it's normal to be outside the four walls and into nature and just enjoying and learning all the things that are really fundamentally important for a growing, curious mind. So that's been my experience so far.
Well, that's really inspiring. I should ask you before we break for commercials, do you have a website that you can give out to the audience?
I'm like Carolyn. I'm old school, so I don't have a website, but you certainly prompted an interesting question, so I will pursue that.
Nonetheless.
Sorry?
Well, I do appreciate your time and your story today. It was really really inspiring, and I'd very much like to meet you in the future.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for the opportunity to allow other ears to hear some of the enthusiasm and the excitement that we have going on here, particularly this weekend. So thanks again for the call, and I hope you have a marvelous day. Well,
thank you so much, and you enjoy the rest of this great weekend. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to quickly break for commercials, and when we get back, we're going to hear more about this great event called the Headwaters Gathering. This is AD Venture, joined by the Wolfman. We'll see you on the other side.
Want to spread awareness to your neighbors, family, and friends about what is going on in our country today? It may be things you already know, like the large number of FEMA camps spread around this country to lock up citizens like you and me. What legislators are doing to strip states and people of their sovereign rights. Or legislation giving states the power to force vaccinate under a declared state of emergency. Do your neighbors understand what is going on? William Lewis Films offers the perfect tools to inform our population about this government's tyrannical shift from a constitutional republic to a despotic democracy. Films like 911 Ripple Effect, Beyond Treason, One Nation Under Siege, Washington You're Fired, Camp FEMA, Enemy of the State, Don't Tread on Me, Blood of Patriots, The Ron Paul Uprising, even 911 in Plain Sight, William's first production, are all available at WilliamLewisFilms.com. Get your DVDs today at WilliamLewisFilms.com. Educate against the police state.
Does the media ever deceive the public?
A white plane, a very big jet, was flying in an unusual pattern near the White House over Lafayette Park. Very slowly, it made one circle and then...
Are the media and their sources trustworthy?
New York State and New Jersey will get their first doses of the swine flu vaccine.
The H1N1 virus has made thousands of people across the country sick. Many have died, and some worrying that it could grow into a full-blown pandemic.
Where does our mainstream media get their news?
All this enjoyment is brought to you by all the things sweetened with NutraSweet.
There's a reason why we want to own these guns.
We're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this.
That was President Obama Friday suggesting it is now time to reopen the national debate on gun control.
The media tends to march in lockstep with the government.
Who is responsible when the media fabricates the news?
When the public is constantly fed messages that are potentially leading us into a war that may not be necessary, it's not fair to the American people, and it's not fair to journalism, because the truth isn't being told here. We found out that CNN International is actually making money from the Bahrain regime. They are a customer of Bahrain. Bahrain is paying CNN International to create content that shows Bahrain in a favorable light, to then air that content on CNN International.
Join us online at WilliamLewisFilms.com.
This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. Warriors, you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Read about it in The Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available now at newsstands everywhere. The Sovereign is a monthly 24-page tabloid newspaper featuring incendiary content about life during wartime in the age of Obama. Warriors, keep to date every month. Remember to read The Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available at newsstands everywhere. This alert is for all you boppers out there in the big city, all you street people with an ear for the action. This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. This is Mercy. Mine will be the last voice you will ever hear. Don't be alarmed.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the Motion Picture. A view into the globalist domain and embellish and Burma's film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We have to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd include the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up. Speak up, speak out.
Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at shadethemotionpicture.com.
Welcome back to the Barefoot Bushcraft Radio Show. This is A.D. Venture, and I'm joined by my co-host, the Wolfman.
Thank you, and this is a very special edition of the Barefoot Bushcraft Show this week, concentrating on the Headwaters gathering in South Central Ontario. So I have another special guest here who has come in. His name is Daniel, and he has some amazing experiences to share with everybody. So I'm just going to pass the mic over to him, and I know A.D. Venture has some questions as well. There you go.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you for joining us on the Barefoot Bushcraft Radio Show.
My pleasure, yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, we hear you great. Wolf's been wanting to get you on our show for quite some time. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you're all about.
Sure. Well, my name is Daniel Sturmack Stein, and born and raised in Toronto, but I've been lucky enough to have the privilege of learning all sorts of things about living in the woods and more recently farming. And specifically what Wolf was asking me about was a year that I spent living in northern Minnesota with a group of my friends and pretty much trying to hunt and gather our way through Northwood's turn of the seasons. Do you want me to talk about it? Or
please tell us all about that.
I was lucky enough to meet some folks that invited me out there and in a way apprentices me into their way of life out there. They were young people like myself, and we would do a maple syrup camp where we would live out in a maple forest for, it was almost a month and a half, collecting maple syrup, and we could just be, as with everything that we did, we needed very little money, and for what it was worth, we're lucky enough to be able to focus all of our attention on sort of our material existence. Which certainly had its downfalls too, and didn't quite work out for any of us in the end. And it was quite a big learning experience in terms of the social side of things and all of that. But quite a privileged opportunity to have that time to learn about these old ways of also hunting. And we did a lot of wild rice gathering or monoman harvesting out there, and small garden and in cabins that everyone had built themselves, and these folks were very committed to this way of life and had their children out there all on their own with the help of a midwife, and we're really trying to make real their longing to see a day where they could live with a small group of people out in the woods, as they thought was sort of the ideal solution to all the problems of our modern time. And, as beautiful as it was, this whole thing that was sort of a running away from the way of the world and trying to have things perfect for ourselves without having much to say to the rest of the world, or to try and make things right and share what we knew with folks. And specifically, we didn't have any elders out there because, I was hearing your last guest talk about how important the role of older folks are in mentoring the younger ones and giving us the reasons and helping us find our path, and the way that we were living pretty much excluded anyone that was older than us, because it was a very, very rough existence. The cabins were not insulated buildings, and we had to do a lot of stuff on our own, and the result of that was only young people would come, and basically people would come through like myself and stay a year until they, for whatever reason, moved on. It sounds great that we'd all live together with these shared ideals, but I think when it came down to it, there wasn't a whole lot really binding us together. There was it was a good chance to see, even in our ideals as young people, what was lacking, what we weren't able to see about the glue of, really. To be honest, I don't know what it would be, but to see that, wishing something to be so isn't enough to make it so. And so, the whole dream sort of, I guess, fell apart for them in fairly tragic ways. Nothing too dramatic, but, I think it got old for everyone, and it got tough, and it was hard on the kids, their children being that isolated. And, I think certainly for me, it was a huge eye-opening to, as I heard someone say, the wreckage of our best intent. This was the manifestation of our best intent, and yet it wasn't what we had bargained for.
That's unfortunate.
It is, and yes, it certainly in a lot of ways is unfortunate, and I think it's quite a telling thing, because I know a lot of my friends, that's the exact thing that a lot of them long for. And, it's in a lot of ways, as far as I was able to see, is kind of a running away from the way things, of the work that is needed of us from the world.
Very interesting. Now, I've got to ask you, Daniel, how long have you been attending the Headwaters gathering?
I guess it would be almost 4 years now, something like that, 3-4 years.
Wow. Have you seen a big change in the way things operate over the past 4 years?
Well, it seems like there's more people. It seems like the people who do all the hard work of organizing this have sort of maintained what they see as their vision of how they want things, and probably, in terms of things running a bit more smoothly and hopefully a little less chaotically for them on the organizing end. But it's pretty, they've stuck to what I understood as their hopes from the first time, really. I've been to a lot of these similar types of gatherings in the United States as well, and I really appreciate sort of the some of the differences here, where it's a lot more informal, and it certainly is a lot cheaper in terms of the entrance fee, and a lot less people, which might sound somewhat unfortunate, but I think it's also quite appropriate, because you can actually get to know the group of people, and you have a feeling that you're coming back to somewhere where you're a little bit familiar to.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a strong sense of community there, and lower numbers isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when, just like you said, you have that ability to connect with other individuals that you might never, connect in your normal life.
Sure. Yeah, it really is good, and the only, it's just unfortunate that some of the people that would want to come didn't get to, but
there's always next year.
There's always next year, and there's always the other one in the fall as well.
That's true.
Well, it sounds like Wolf's trying to get you onto the next guy here.
Oh, we've got another guest. Sorry to push you off, but it was great to hear from you, Daniel.
Great to be on. Thank you very much.
Well, we hope to have you back on Barefoot Bushcraft Radio.
Wonderful. Until then, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. You have yourself a great weekend.
All right. We have a big lineup of guests here. It's kind of awesome today. The next couple of people that we're trying to get on events. So what I'm going to do is pass the mic over to Garen, who is one of our coordinators. He also spent time as an intern, and he can tell you a little bit more about that when he gets on. If you're ready, AD Venture.
I'm always ready.
All right. There you go.
Hello.
Welcome, Garen. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, actually.
Good.
So why don't you tell us a little more about yourself? Wolf says that you're a coordinator there, that you started off as an intern.
Yes. Last year I was apprentice at Sticks and Stones Wilderness School, and I've kind of continued on working with them into the new year here, and gives me a lot of opportunities to do stuff like this, come out and help organize this event here, and work with all the great volunteers and workshop presenters, and kind of doing a little bit of presenting myself.
What kind of presentations have you done?
Well, he just pulled me in away from the fire circle where I was doing a bow drill workshop. So I've sounded a little hoarse. It's because I've got a lot of cedar smoke in my lungs from making bow drill fires.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. And how is that course going?
Sorry?
How was that going? How was it received by all the participants?
Oh, excellent. This is actually the second one I've done, and got some of the first crew coming back to do some more. They're really enjoying it. I did a kids one earlier today as well, which was just amazing to get some kids getting coals and just really enjoying themselves doing it.
Well, that's really inspiring, especially when to hear that young kids are getting involved with these sorts of primitive skills and having great success, especially when they're exposed to so many professionals and experienced people.
Yeah, it's a great kind of environment where just the young kids can interact with all ages and all groups, and you just see that everywhere. It's really a great thing.
Is there anything else you can tell us about the Headwaters Gathering this year? Anything new? Anything different? Anything of interest that you'd like to share with our audience here on Freedomizer Radio?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of great presentations. We have I don't know if anyone's mentioned before, but Doug Getgood, who's just amazing. He brings so many skills to these gatherings. This is my second one, and I was blown away by him last year, and he comes back with a whole new set of skills this year. Which is just great. All kinds of survivalist skills and just really neat bushcraft skills that I never see in books or anything like that. He's got has his own set of skills, and also just a lot of the older people bring their unique set of skills you don't get anywhere else, I find. I think we have someone else ready for the mic here.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, Gary, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, we're going to get the next guest now on Barefoot Bushcraft Radio.
Yes, our next guest is Skeet, who is the numero uno, the head honcho for everything that happens this weekend. So he's going to be an amazing person to speak to. He's also a skills instructor like many of us here. So I'm just going to pass the mic over. It'll just take a second.
Well, this is absolutely great to have Skeet Sutherland here on the Barefoot Bushcraft Radio Show. It's an absolute honor to have you on. I'm very sorry I wasn't able to attend the Headwaters Gathering this year, Skeet, but someone had to man the show. But I'm there through Wolf, and I'm glad that everyone's having a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. It feels really good to reach you through the wonderful world of technology.
Well, now that we have you on the show, what I'd very much love to have you to do would be to share with our audience, both Canadian and American and worldwide, about the Headwaters Gathering. How did it start? How did it build and grow, and what do you see it doing now?
Well, just to comment on Wolf said, I'm definitely not the head honcho here. This is a community event that really started out of the need for many of us who have been training in wilderness skills to bring it home and share it with our families and our communities, and bring people who generally have a workaday world reality into the woods and have some fun with them. that we did 6 years ago with that incentive or that intent, and 30 people in the back of a farm field on an organic farm with the intention to have some fun together really skyrocketed from there to the point where we're amongst 250 people here from all ages and walks of life, from probably about 75 years old right down to, my wife is pregnant about 3 months in. So we really have an intergenerational village here at camp this year, and it feels just tremendous to get together with a group of people that have such a strong focus on wanting to learn various different skills, yet at the same time also hold a very sacred space in and around the context of community and what it is that we're doing here on the land. And a huge part of the focus of the gathering has always been to leave the place better than we found it when we came in the first place. And what that actually shows up as is very little garbage pickup, very little cleanup at the end of the gathering itself. Everybody here is self-sufficient. And even though many people who came to the gathering originally didn't understand that was the context or the intent of the gathering, what it really provides for people is a role model from a community perspective as to what it is to understand and live within the context of your carrying capacity and leave the place better than you found it is something that eludes most people. You know, there's a lot of people today that don't really understand how they fit in ecologically. And one thing that we've been role modeling here, specifically at Kimbercote Farm for the past 5 years of hosting the gathering here, maybe 4 years, pardon me, is that we host a stewardship component to the gathering every Sunday morning. So over the past 4 years, we've planted several thousand trees on the property, most in the food production variety of species. So I think there's now 6 different types of oaks that grow on the property, butternuts and walnuts, all kinds of different shrubs. And naturalizing the native diversity here on the property has been a key focus of ours to not only provide food from an edible forest gardening perspective, but also to make sure that the wildlife that frequents this property has enough food to keep them through the lean times of the year. So the gathering itself really has grown and has kept to its original intention on making sure that we're staying within the carrying capacity of the land that we're on itself. And the results really are showing. And what we're finding is that now we hear of stories that people have come to the gathering and learned about the context of what it is to live within their carrying capacity, and then taken those skills home, and they start to build their own edible forest gardens and start to set up their own permaculture projects right in their own very backyards, whether that's an urban balcony on their apartment or it's the 1 acre lot that they have on the edge of town or on their farms that were commercially farmed for a time and are now being regenerated into really productive small plot edible forest gardens, or like I said before, permaculture gardens. So the event itself really has taken on a village feel. There's a tremendous diversity of people here that bring a great deal of skill and diversity of skill, from very specific emergency survival bushcraft skills right through to very specific indigenous teachings in and around the context of sacred fire or what it is to be a caretaker of a landscape itself. So I really hope that helps give a little bit of a snapshot as to what the gathering started as, how it's kept to its original intention, and how it's also allowed for growth to take place in the meantime.
Well, that is truly incredible. And I just want to share with our internet and listening audience that you can find a little more information about Sticks and Stones at the following website address. That's www.sticksandstoneswildernesschool.com. Again, that's www.sticksandstoneswildernesschool.com. and you can learn more about Skeet and a lot of other of the great instructors and mentors there working with the school. And I've got to say, Skeet, it's really, really inspiring to see all the great community aspects that come out of the Headwaters gathering. And you were just mentioning slightly about that, but perhaps you could go a little more further into the community cleanup that occurs on Sunday morning. Not only have you mentioned that you do the planting of the trees, especially trying to bring equilibrium to the environment and allow for the animals to live properly, as well as yourselves. Can you tell us a little more?
Yeah, well, I mean, here we are situated on a 100-acre farm that was clear-cut in the early part of the 19th century and was commercially farmed for a number of years to the point where they recognized that they had depleted the soil, not only because of the farming practices, but because of the land being stripped of its original ecology. A lot of the topsoil literally washed away with the spring melts that take place here in the Beaver Valley, as well as just a gradual erosion from continuous rain. So what we've been doing is intentionally diverting a lot of the water that would otherwise cruise right off the hillside itself down into the Beaver River, filled with sediment, which is not a good thing to have in the Beaver River itself and the quantity that comes off of these hillsides due to the farming ditches. But so what we've been doing with that is to try to slow the water down as it makes its way off the landscape itself, and we've basically been digging various different water swales across the hillside, like I said, to divert it so that the local ecology can make the most of it before it's just washed off the property itself. So that's one example of what we've been doing here. So it's amazing how much can be done with 200 people and a bunch of shovels. At first it seems like, oh God, that's going to be a lot of work. Well, sure it is. There's nothing like sweating and getting some calluses on your hands to make the most of a morning's worth of work. But when you take 200 people in 3 hours, you can do a tremendous amount of work. So like I said before, we've been planting a tremendous amount of various different shrub and tree species on the property, specifically to raise the ecological integrity and to increase the diversity of species here on the property. There's a number of invasive species, or what are called invasive species, that have been growing profusely across Ontario over the past number of years. And many people feel that those species are going to displace the native species, and to a certain degree that's true. But what we've noticed in particular is that the European buckthorn that grows here on the property actually is providing a tremendous food source for a great diversity of avian life, bird species that is. And it's actually remarkable how much food one little buckthorn shrub can provide, and how much of how long of a distance that energy can go when you consider migration from the far north down the Bruce Peninsula through this region of the southern Bruce and northern Grey County, and then down into Niagara and across into the United States itself.
Well, that's incredible, Skeet. Before we actually close up the show for the hour, I just want to have you tell us what the event is coming up in the fall that Sticks and Stones Wilderness School is having.
Well, we do a number of programs. I'm sorry, could you be a little more specific?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that there was a particular event that was happening this fall, just similar to the Headwaters gathering.
Right. So there's another. Yeah, I believe there's several gatherings that take place throughout Ontario, but I think what you're alluding to, if I can follow your thought process, is the Harvest Gathering, which takes place out of the Corker Lakes area. Yeah, no problem.
Right, the Harvest Gathering.
Yeah, which I believe takes place towards the end of September, sometime in October, which is really what I'm seeing about this is that each region has a community of people that recognize that their local ecosystem needs this type of stewardship to take place on the land. Not only that, but with the prices of gas rising all the time, becoming more local all the time has been a huge incentive for people all across the map. So
Absolutely. Well, sorry to cut you off there, Steve. We're at the end of the time for the Barefoot Bushcraft radio show. We thank all our audience to have joined us, and we recommend that you check out both the websites for the Headwaters Gathering. That's www.headwatersgathering.ca. There's the Sticks and Stones Wilderness School. That's www.sticksandstoneswildernesschool.com. And this is the end of the Barefoot Bushcraft radio show for May 25th, 2013. I am A.D. Venture. Thanks for joining us.